evening to everybody. Welcome to this live stream on Saturday the 27th, just checking my date, 27th of February. This is our live stream number 96. And this is Saturday evening. Welcome to another in-concert session. This is Christopher Daigan coming to you live at 6 p.m. from our home in KwaZulu-Natal. And we're very much hoping that you can join us for the next hour for, I think, a really special program of music, another program of very calming, beautiful music, but also I'm hoping to introduce you to a lot of music that you might have never heard before. So if you're able to support us, please visit my website. You'll find all the links to credit card donation, PayPal, etc., as well as the Quicket platform. Please support us. It's really essential. The costs, the various costs of the streaming, internet connections, the platforms, everything involved, it really does add up. Plus, this is the only way I'm able to make a living at the moment. Any gatherings of more than even just a few people are restricted, and I realize it also is just not a good idea to encourage people to gather under the current circumstances. Now, this evening's program I've called Moments of Night. It's a selection mainly of night music, of nocturnes, of very gentle and calm music. And as I said, I've included a number of pieces. I've really done a lot of research over the last year or so, collecting repertoire. I'm always fascinated by the piano repertoire, but collecting repertoire of some quite unusual pieces that I'm hoping to, or that I am going to, I'm not hoping, I'm hoping to get them right, but I am going to present them to you this evening in this evening's session. I am fascinated by the piano repertoire, and it is vast, and even though I've always been collecting music and looking and always searching for new and obscure pieces of beautiful music, it really surprises me that there's always new music to discover. And I find it sometimes by chance. I see something or on YouTube, or someone sends me a piece of music and says, "Don't you think this is a great piece of music? Don't you think you should play this?" And it's just amazing how many beautiful, really beautiful pieces of music there actually are out there. And so I'm playing these this evening for various reasons. Apart from it's really a fresh program, all of this music, except maybe for one or two short pieces, are new to me. And I've prepared them over the last couple of weeks specifically for this evening's live stream. But I'm hoping to bring you, the audience, a new selection of beautiful music, expose you to new composers maybe, new melodies, and also to give, to share these ideas with other pianists. I know many young pianists who are doing the ABRSM exams now have to include a piece of their own choice. I know there are many pianists who play the piano purely for their own enjoyment, as well as, who knows, there might be some more advanced pianists watching as well, and you might decide, oh, you've never heard that piece before, and you might quite like it. So if anyone is wanting any of these pieces of music, I'm quite happy to send you the links. They're all freely available on the internet. Now, I am going to start off with two compositions. I'm going to play them in pairs or in groups of three. And the first two pieces, the first by the French composer, 20th century, mid-20th century composer Francis Poulenc. He wrote a series of 15 improvisations, and this is the last of the 15. And it's an homage Edith Piaf. Now, as I said before in one of my live streams when I did play this, Poulenc and Piaf, both being French and living very much around the same time, actually never met. But it's thought that after he heard of her death, that he composed this piece, which is very poignant. It has a beautiful melody, such beautiful chords. It really has a unique and very, very special quality about it. And Poulenc always writes beautifully for the piano. And the second piece by the Brazilian composer Heitor Villa-Lobos, really very exciting piece called the Valse d'Ardor, or the Valse Triste, the sad waltz. And as with always, I think, with the composer's music, something of the earthiness of the Brazilian culture, the rhythm, and something of the grounded, there's a sort of almost like a savage quality somewhere in there, a very earthy rhythm. And this is really found in these contrasted sections. On one hand, you get this beautiful waltz, this very sad melody, and then it explodes into these much more driven and quite dark, quite drama-filled sections of music. So this is the improvisation Edith Piaf by Francis Poulenc, and the Valse Triste or the Valse d'Ardor by Heitor Villa-Lobos. Goodness, what was all that about? Come on, girls, in your basket. In your basket. In your basket. Basket. Everyone's being very badly behaved. Granny Lulu is wandering around. You can hear her nails clicking on the floor. Come in your basket. Don't know what's going on. There's a lot of, I think someone was sick somewhere. It's the noise next door. Yeah. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed those two pieces. That was the Valse d'Ador, the Valse Triste by the Brazilian composer Hetel Villa-Lobos. Beautiful energy. I love that sort of dark rumbling there in the middle of it. And then before that, the beautiful improvisation Edith Piaf by Francis Poulenc. One note about the Villa-Lobos, when I was doing my research and looking on YouTube for various, just to have a listen to that, I was so surprised and felt like such a positive moment to discover that one of the recordings, and in fact probably the most definitive recording of that piece, was in fact by the Brazilian pianist who I studied with when I was in Manchester, in England, at the Royal Northern College, a pianist by the name of Arnaldo Cohen. And being a Brazilian composer, he's recorded, pianist at least, he's recorded a CD of Brazilian piano music, and that was one of the tracks on it. So it was such a lovely discovery, to purely by surprise, to find that on YouTube. I'm going to move on to three pieces from the early 18th century, the 1700s, by two quite obscure composers. First of all, French composer Jacques Dufley, then C.P.E. Bach, or Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, one of the more famous sons of the great Johann Sebastian Bach, and the third piece by the celebrated George Frederick Handel. Now, what each of these pieces actually brings together in terms of the performance is quite unique and contrasting aspects of how one can approach the correct performance of music of this time. The Dufley is written for harpsichord, obviously, during this period, and has all these ornamentations, mordents and these little squiggles, well, not written out, but imply that the performer has to add, certainly at discretion, a ornament, added notes in their place. But of course, playing harpsichord music on the piano brings its own unique issues. The piece La Putois refers to, its thought referring to a barrister that the composer knew. He was composing, working in Paris at the time, and someone involved in the government, French government of the period, was referring to him as La Putois. And it's a very plaintive piece of music, and this was very interesting. The way I discovered this, I was listening to a selection of music by Francois Couperin, played on the piano, and I listened to it several times just as I was walking around the house, and I kept hearing this refrain, this very plaintive refrain, and it stuck in my head. And eventually I listened to it. I had to go and figure out who this was, and found that on the CD, or the last track of it, was in fact by this rare obscure composer Jacques Dufley. I've never heard of him before. But this very beautiful, really plaintive refrain. It's a rondo, so the opening refrain you'll hear again and again and again, and towards the end of the piece, the music somehow breaks into this beautiful flowing motion. The second piece by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach is a very simple andante. And Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach is very well known for writing a very important volume, even still to this day, giving us an idea of the appropriate performance of keyboard music. And one of the important things is that people who wrote music down generally expected the performers, who were other musicians and colleagues, not so much professional musicians, but people who really knew music very well, they were expected to add their own filling into the music. So they might sometimes write out a very simple melody and a bass line, and it was expected that the performer would know how to add in their own style. And this is what Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach was writing about in his The Art of Keyboard Playing, about the appropriate taste and how and when to include the right amount of your own material into it. And it does pose a problem because I'm going to play this piece in its most simple version, and then at the end of the program when we're playing it, I'm going to play a more complex version, which I think is a little bit overdone, but which is still very beautiful and very unique in itself. And the third piece, a completely different idea, a minuet by George Frederick Handel. I'm not sure where this came from, but it's arranged by the pianist Wilhelm Kempf, who did many arrangements of Bach and other composers in the mid-20th century. And it uses the full range of what the piano can do. There's no hint at trying to represent of being a harpsichord, maybe even using an orchestra sound, adding in octaves, adding in extra chords, adding in, it's a completely new piece of music, I'm sure, than to what Handel wrote, but it's beautifully poignant, it has a wonderful melody and wonderful color in its own way. So these are three pieces, La Putois by Jacques Dufly, no, followed by CPE Bach, Andante in B minor, and then the Minuet in G by Handel, arranged by Wilhelm Kempf. You've got to sit quietly. Wasn't that charming, beautiful music? I don't know how many have ever heard any of those three pieces before. We started off with La Poutois by Jacques Dufly, French 18th century, early 18th century composer. Following that was the Adagio in B minor by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, piece which I am going to play for you later on in a more elaborate sort of stylistically romantic version, you might say. And the last piece in that stylistic romantic version, rather than maybe an authentic Baroque sound, the Minuet in G minor as arranged by George Frederick Handel. Now, it looks like we're about halfway through our program, so maybe it's time for a little guest artist. Here we have little Lucy Lou. Okay, Lucy Lou. How are you doing, Luce? Who were you barking at earlier? Are you barking? Is there someone making noise outside and you want to go and play? Is that what it is? Okay. Ooh, yep. Ooh, you had something. What did you have for dinner? Oh, yes, it was very nice. With a little bit of roast chicken, I think. I think someone had a little bit of extra roast chicken in the dinner. You're all having big play, big noisiness tonight. I don't know why. Okay, when you go, in your basket. Good girl. Yes, Wendy Poppy, yes. Okay, you're all three coming. All three of you coming. All three here. Hello, Frida. Hello, I'm not going to pick you all up. Come. It's fine. It's okay. In your basket. Good girls. Good girls. We'll see you later on. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to some really unusual music, quite extraordinary pieces. Two compositions by composers we don't normally associate. Oh, no, wait, I'm missing something. Oh, before we get to that, a composition by Robert Schumann. Now, this is a more extended piece of music in the program. Schumann wrote such wonderful piano music, and a lot of it is incredibly intense and passionate, and it's divided between these moments of sort of an internal reverie and then an external, quite a crazy obsession, you might say. But in the midst of all this, he writes an arabesque, Opus 18, a beautiful piece of music that is just a wonderful flowing nature. It's a repeated melody that comes back and back and back again. And it's such a rippling texture, a very gentle, a very ethereal piece of music, you might say. And the most beautiful moment for me, I think, in the piece, one of Schumann's, in fact, one of the most beautiful moments in all music, I think, all piano music, is at the end of the piece, he has a sort of tailpiece, a little coda, where the music stops almost and it hangs in the air. And he just ponders everything that he said before, just note by note by note. It's an incredibly still, very still and wonderfully beautiful moment. So this is the Arabesque, Opus 18 by Robert Schumann. think that has to be one of the most beautiful and gentle endings of any piece in any music. The Arabesque by Robert Schumann, those last moments just really hanging, the music somehow hangs in the air. I'm going to move on to two composers we don't often associate with piano music. This is music by Respighi and Sibelius, both who are more associated with orchestral music of the early 20th century. Respighi being Italian and Sibelius, I believe it is, Sibelius being Finnish, from Finland. I was sent this composition, the Notturno by Respighi, by a friend John in Hilton a couple of months ago, and he sent me the link to the music, and I was completely taken by it the first time I heard it. And the more that I've listened to it and the more that I've studied on it, the more I am absolutely enraptured with this piece. It really is something extraordinary. Both of these composers are not, as I say, we don't generally associate with them with piano music, but yet they come up with such unique ideas. The textures, the sounds, and the way in the Respighi in particular, the way that he writes and creates sounds and movement at the piano is quite unlike anyone else. It's a very unique and individual voice. So this is the Nocturne by Respighi and the fifth of 6 impromptus by Jean Sibelius. It was music by Jean Sibelius, an impromptu, and before that, Ottorino's Respighi's Nocturno from 6 piano pieces. Didn't quite go as well or as quite as I planned. I've been working on those pieces furiously, but so many notes. I think after a year or so, my brain's starting to get a bit full, and it's just saying, no more, I'm not taking anything more in. Anyway, I hope I will have another opportunity. I'm sorry for anyone who knew those pieces, especially the Respighi number. I think it was a bit of my own invention there somewhere along the way, but I'll hopefully have another opportunity, and one day, and hopefully within the months to come, I'll have those pieces memorized and completely embedded in my brain. So I'm going to move on and end off this evening's program with compositions by Chopin and Fauré. Chopin wrote numerous nocturnes. I think there are 19 or 20 nocturnes, and they're all very well, they're published in a volume. But it always seems to be the same nocturnes that people play. Even I'm guilty of that, and I seem to gravitate towards always playing the same ones. And there are one or two nocturnes which are not as attractive or not as generous, you might say, on the surface as some of the others, and they tend to be a little left by the wayside. So I would like to play one of these for you now. This is from Chopin's published nocturnes, from the Nocturnes Opus 37. It's one of 2 nocturnes that he wrote in the key of G minor, and interestingly, both of them have hymn-like sections in the middle. It's a very plaintive melody that he writes, very gentle, very calm, but there's a sense of anguish again, a sense of deep despair almost. Maybe that's the reason why it's not played very often. And then this beautiful hymn-like section in the middle before the opening theme returns, the opening melody. And the second piece, and to end off this evening's program, one of the nocturnes by the French composer Gabriel Fauré. He wrote an enormous amount of piano music, nocturnes, barcarolles, preludes, and for some reason it doesn't seem to reach the general concert halls. It's very fine music. It's got a lot of very interesting modulations and chords and textures. But this is one nocturne that I think is particularly beautiful, a nocturne in number 3, the third of the nocturnes that he wrote in A flat. Beautiful harmonies, but also wonderful textures and beautiful transparency. There are places in the music where there's just one line that seems to float with a gentle accompaniment in the background, some very original sound. So this is music by Chopin and Fauré. Nocturne number 3 by Gabriel Fauré, and before that the Nocturne in G minor, opus 37 by Frédéric Chopin. I feel that Fauré might have actually taken us right through these moments of night, a selection of nocturnes and night music into the first light of morning. Sorry about the dogs, they do seem to be very agitated. I think there might be some children playing next door, and it just always just sends them off. I don't know why they get very agitated, very uptight, and they want to bark. As mentioned the other day, the dogs are just part of the scene. When we started these live streams a year ago, Barry was next door looking after the dogs, and Kevin Liddell was helping here or even I was using my cell phone, and there was always someone else. Now it's just the two of us, and of course if we can't leave the dogs outside, they will just scratch at the door to try and get into the studio the whole night. So they are here. They've been very well behaved for the last couple of months, but for some reason suddenly they just seem to be a little bit agitated tonight. I don't quite know why. And of course it would be the night that I chose to present my most gentle and delicate and atmospheric program, Moments of Night. So I suppose every Moments of Night has its own little visitors and unexpected turns. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed the selection of music. If you are able to support us, buying a ticket, financial donation, of course it's we are incredibly grateful. I'm incredibly grateful for anything that comes through. It really does help me continue this program. We've been at it for almost a year now. At the end of March, we have some very exciting plans for our live stream number 100, as well as during that week we'll be having extra live streams on Wednesday, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday night. And that's going to be a very exciting program. And next week, Wednesday, I will be presenting part 2 of the Tales of Intrigue, some really interesting, kind of unusual, fascinating stories about Vivaldi, Haydn, Tchaikovsky, Ravel, and playing music by those composers, as well as showing you some details. I realized that these opportunities to add short images and scores and things that I have access to on the internet and to bring them into our live stream is incredibly beneficial and seems to add great value to your enjoyment. And then next Saturday, I will be playing a classic selection of concert music by Liszt and Mozart and Chopin's Berceuse, a cradle song which I was going to include in this evening's program, but have put that off into that. So thank you for joining us tonight. As promised, I'm going to play out this evening with the Andante by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, in a slightly different version. This is an edited version, so someone else has added in what they think is the chords and the textures that Bach might have intended. I'm not quite convinced. I think it's a bit overdone, but it still adds up to a beautiful piece. So, have a good evening. Look after yourself. Stay well. Thanks to Barry for the controls and the technical support this evening. And no thanks to the dogs this evening, the puppets, for making such a racket. Let's see how this one goes. Oh, there you are, Wendy. Finish talking.